Welcome to the Compose Like a Girl podcast. I'm your founder, host, and composer, Jocelyn Hagen. My Compose Like a Girl initiative amplifies female-identifying composers, helps conductors diversify their concerts, and works toward more equality in music programming and commissioning. I've been sitting down for conversations with some amazing composers, and I want to invite you into these deeper explorations of art and life. I hope you leave with some inspiration, just as I did. On today's episode, I'm sharing a recent conversation I had with Alex Shapiro. One of the things I love most about Alex is that she's a real person. And by that I mean that she is honest and humble, kind and personable. There's no barrier between her and her colleagues or her and her art. She's a joy to be around. And her work is taken seriously and has made an impact. Every time I interact with Alex, I learn something new and am also inspired to try something new. I'm sure you'll feel the same way after listening today. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy. Hi, Alex. It is such a delight to finally get to spend some time with you.
Likewise. I have been looking forward to this for so long. We see each other at conferences, etc., but we never have a chance to talk one-on-one, at least not without a million other people making a lot of noise behind us.
Right. I have these amazing pictures of us from Midwest, I think, where we're holding these pencils that say New Music AF. Is that what they said? Yeah.
I love that picture. Yep.
Well, okay. I have lots of things I want to ask you about, and I'm hoping that, what doesn't get covered in today's conversation will happen at another time when I get to see you.
Yep.
When you were describing your music in a recent interview that I found on your website, I loved hearing you use the word heartfelt, because that word is actually also in my bio. And I don't think it's one that's used very often, but it feels very appropriate.
Yeah. And I know from what I know of your music, I know that you're going to agree with me 1,000% that the reason we do this is it's not an academic pursuit, at least, for people like us, it certainly isn't. It's all about communication, and it's all about the heart, and it's all about feeling, and it's all about emotion, and about grabbing other people, first your musicians and secondly your audience, by the shoulders and shaking them in the best of ways, hopefully, to feel. And if we weren't doing that, and if people aren't feeling something from our music, and if we're not feeling something from the doing of it, I think we're doing it wrong. So that's very front and center for me, is heartfelt. The most human aspects of what we do, to me, are the most important ones. I always tell younger composers who are, wondering like, okay, all the variations on how do you do this? How do you have a career? How do you do whatever? And I'm always saying, you know what? It starts from the heart and goes lower. And then the brain, way up here in the head, that's the last part of it. You have to have that, right? You have to be discerning. You have to be able to edit yourself. You have to make intellectual decisions here and there on what you're doing and the craft of what you're doing. But it certainly should never start that place. It has to start in the rest of your body. And that's where the music comes from.
Oh,
so let's hear it for Heartfelt.
Yes, that is such a wonderful description. If I might want to steal that and use it, but I promise I will give you full ownership of that idea. But yeah, starting with the heart. And then, I often talk about my gut instincts. Where is my ear leading me to go? What do I want to hear next?
Absolutely. What do you want to hear next? And have you ever experienced this phenomenon? It happens to me too often, but I've trained myself to, snap out of it, where you have, maybe when you're starting a piece, you have an intellectual idea of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish with the piece. Where's it going to go? It's going to do this, that, the other. Right. And it might look great on paper, whatever. But then once you get into the piece, it's like these gerbils in your mind take over on the wheel, and the piece is starting to do its own thing, and not veer off the tracks in a bad way, but just go in a different direction. And there's this little fight sometimes that I have inside of me, and I bet you've been through this, where part of you is still being guided by what you thought the piece was supposed to be about, as opposed to where it's actually going. You have a dissonance in your reality. And finally you snap out of it and you realize, okay, wait a minute, let's abandon plan A and just see where this leads. And every time I do that, the piece, of course, is so much better and it gets me unstuck because usually this happens when I get to a stuck place. So again, we're back to what you said, Jocelyn, trusting your gut. Gut is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it in life in general. I mean, if I had listened to my gut with any countless number of people I dated years ago, right? Those relationships would have either not happened or been a hell of a lot shorter. But my intellect, unfortunately, would talk me into it. It's like, oh, it's okay, right? And until everything blows up. I think music is very much like that. It's about if you're not listening to your gut, you're also not doing it in the best way because your gut does know stuff. It knows stuff your intellect doesn't. It's easy to talk ourselves into things or out of them, frankly, but you have to trust what your gut and instincts are telling you, and those are almost always right. Now, there's little hairs on the back of your proverbial neck,
Yeah, gosh, this happened to me just yesterday because I was working. I've got this kind of large work it's weird. It's a two-part piece, so two movements, that which doesn't happen all that often, at least in my work.
Right?
And I had a long poem, and as I was writing it, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm already almost 4 minutes in, and this is where I am in this scope of this poem, and it's also, I can't hear. The structure of it doesn't make sense to me anymore. And I had to just completely kind of, and I'm grateful that I was working with a poet. I commissioned the poetry and she's very, very open to suggestion and play within the words. But I had to completely kind of restructure what I thought the form was going to be based on these things like the gerbils, what they had done.
Gerbils.
Making this music. Oh, I love this. I love this groove. I love this this little rhythm and how it's developing. And then, okay, now, and looking back, and it's a really long poem too. And I find that is sometimes what makes the structure challenging. But I actually took scissors and I cut the piece of paper with the poem and I drew all over it in different colors because I'm very visual and figuring out what that new structure needed to be.
Absolutely. Sometimes you have to burn it all down and start again, or certainly backtrack. I did that again. The same thing. I did that with the piece I'm just finishing now. I'm going to deliver in another day or two, and it's that same thing of you just take a fresh look altogether, disassociate yourself from everything you just slaved over for those, let's say in your case, 4 minutes of music, and take what's good about it, and then be honest about where it starts to go off track or where you were getting stuck, and then start over. I also like to draw things, and I think that the act of physically cutting and pasting and all that is very cool. It's very visceral, right? And I also find that writing out or typing out, in my case, in just a little note on the computer screen next to me, an outline of kind of like, like you're umpiring a ball game or something. It does this, it does that, it does this, it does that, and that kind of helps me to refer to see the form, and I can always change it around. But looking at it in that kind of way as an overview keeps me honest too, because there's nothing I like less than noodling music. I don't want to noodle around. I don't want to waste people's time, because you know what, you can always hear it in music, right? When someone's noodling around, it's like you can just tell, well, they don't quite have an idea yet, but about 6, 7, 8 measures, there it is, now there's their idea, right? And frankly, that composer could have just cut out those 6, 7, 8 measures where they were noodling around figuring out what the hell to do next.
Yes. Well, that's the development of that other part that you talked about, the head, the brain, the editing brain.
Yes.
And that took years to develop for me.
Yep.
And I think that's pretty normal for composers. But yeah, the ability to look at it and say, this is not precise enough.
Yep.
It'll be better here. Or do you really need that one bar or those 3 beats or whatever it is, and tighten everything up, tighten those screws.
Because composing is improvising in slow motion, basically, right? And so we can go on, when we're having an idea, we're sort of noodling it into place to some degree, depending on the phrase or, how much of it's already in our head. And invariably, I have found that the answer to just about everything is drop a beat or drop X number of measures. Like if something's not working, it's probably because it doesn't need to be there. Because what you find is many composers, I'm sure, find that they'll be working on something, trying to hammer something out for hours, just a little 2-bar segment that's just not working. And no matter what they do, it's not working. And they can't figure out why it's not working. And then all of a sudden, if you get rid of it, you never needed it in the first place. And that's why it wasn't working. So I have found that the older I get, the more brutal, the more of a bloodbath it is here in the studio with just notes all over the floor, things
Yeah.
that are never going to see the light of day, even if I slaved over them for hours. It's like, I'm just take no prisoners. It's like, you're out of here, notes. I don't need you. You can show up in another piece if you want. But I think you have to be that brutal and keep your sense of humor about it too, because they're all your babies, right?
Oh,
All
yes.
these notes, they're
Yeah.
all our children. And we're basically saying, you're out of here. I don't need you.
Yeah. Kill your darlings, right?
Murder your darlings
Oh,
is a
yes.
great thing to remember. No matter how much you love it, no matter how much you slaved over it, that doesn't mean it belongs in your piece. It doesn't even mean they're not good notes. It just means they're not good notes for that piece, or
Yeah.
good phrases or good whatever for that piece.
Yeah.
Um, this is what's great about digital work in all these past decades, because back in the day, I'm a lot older than you, so I can tell you, back in the day when it was so god awful to have to copy out everything by hand, write everything by hand, and quite literally cut and paste things if you wanted to
Yeah.
move things around to avoid having to rewrite everything because of the writer's cramp. And now I think technology makes it so much easier and much more delightful and much less painful to murder those darlings, to basically say, okay, I'm going to start a new file with a new name. I put a number after my title for, every new file so that if I want to go back to something, I can. So I'm not throwing it away, but I start fresh and get rid of a bunch of stuff. And it's so much easier than
Yeah.
it used to be when you were dealing with physical manuscript paper.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, and this actually leads us really well into the first piece of music that I want to listen to of yours, because when I listened to it, I thought, wow, this piece is efficient. There's nothing in there that is fluff or unnecessary. It just goes and goes, and I'm completely engaged the entire way through.
Now I'm really curious what piece this is.
Yeah, it's Tight Squeeze.
Oh wow, yeah. I think that's probably my most successful of the shorter band pieces. I agree. It is tight. It is a tight piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
that.
I
I
loved it.
really appreciate that.
Well, Alex, I must say, so even though we've known each other for a while, I haven't really spent much time with your music until recently, until I was going to interview you. And I'm like, and I should say, the first piece I listened to of yours was Spark.
Oh yeah.
And oh my gosh, I was like, why haven't I been listening to this music for much
Oh.
longer? I love that piece. And as
Oh.
a pianist, I just wanted to play it. It was so fun and dynamic and exciting. I loved it. And
Thank you. That means a
yeah.
lot. And the music's coming your way. You know that.
Yay. That's what I like to
That is
hear.
so sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah, that piece, there's a big story behind that piece, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, there's a big story behind it. Well, now I kind of want to know what that
Okay,
is.
well, I'll try to be brief, but basically, Spark, it's a solo piano piece. It's not that long, but it was probably the most daunting commission I've ever had, if you can imagine. It's only solo piano, and I too play the piano. So this is not like somebody asking me to write for, harp or guitar or something that's a little more challenging, like, or organ. Those are harder. The commission was from a man who has since become a dear friend, but he was an attorney in Chicago, who I didn't know at all at the time, who had contacted me, got my name from a couple of people, because he was beyond heartbroken at the loss of the love of his life from cancer in her mid 50s,
Oh,
early 50s. And he was completely bereft. And she was a pianist and a harpsichordist, as well as a school teacher and other things. And he wanted a piece in her honor. And the depth of sorrow that this man was going through was so gut wrenching, and more to the point from my perspective is, not only do I want to honor her memory, but I didn't know her, I don't know him. You're doing something very, very personal for
yeah.
someone that you don't know. And so the first thing I asked him for, when we spoke, I said, would you be kind enough to perhaps send me some photos or write something about her for me, and just connect me with her. Her name is Mara Burchard. And the next week, I got something in the email that was a collection of wonderful writings and a few photographs and this amazing little video of her in her classroom. She was with a kindergarten class, and she was dancing around the room with them all following her, kind of like the Pied Piper. And they were dancing and singing, and all these cute little kids were following her, and the whole room was filled with so much joy and light. And I wrote Sherwin back and I said, this woman has a spark. She is amazing. And I fully understand, the depth of your loss over someone so special. And not all elegies have to be sad, slow, and and I said, I think this woman should be represented by light and what she and the memory of her, as a spark-filled person. And therein came the piece, which is pretty much roughly ABA. So the first and last parts, as you know, are fast and spark-like, and then the middle section is very lyrical and a little bit elegiac in a lilting way. But yeah, it was such a touching story because you have someone's heart in your hands and you don't know them. I mean, it's hard enough if you do know them. But to me, that was the biggest responsibility. It's one thing when, a university commissions you for their 140th anniversary of this, right? Or whatever, it's a great thing. But that's different. That's not as emotional. We're back to emotions. We're back to heartfelt, right? We've come full circle because when somebody comes to you wanting music for something this personal and this special, it's all about emotion and heart. And there is nothing else that matters. There is not an academic moment in that conversation.
Here's Spark, performed by Adam Marks from Alex's album Arcana. on your main page of your website, it also says fun person alongside the words composer, essayist, activist, naturalist, photo blogger, and then fun person. And that made me so happy.
Embrace who you are, right? I mean, I kind of crack up at this point, and it's not just age, being at a certain point where you're looking, backward at a lot of things. But I just crack up at these mostly younger musicians, not always younger, who somehow think that in order to be taken seriously, they have to be so serious and they have to glare at us in their headshots and they have to only wear black and they have to never crack a smile and they have to be, I don't know, whatever. It's just, it's so not who I'd want to have a beer with, So.
Well, and another thing that I know about you from, reading up on you, preparing for today, is that you're schooling and you grew up in Manhattan, but then you moved to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Is part of that because is the West Coast more fun? Like, is that
I
part
think
of
so.
it?
Well, I'm sure there's much fun to be had in New York. I know that. I'm there all the time. But all things said, I have a theory. It was actually, I was just asked to write this for some program notes in LA. And I spun out this little essay that I've been talking to people about for the longest time. It's called Proximity to Europe Theory, which is, in a nutshell, because I grew up in New York City and I grew up sort of with a very keen concept of the musical literati of the East Coast and that whole scene, right? And I kind of was part of that in certain ways. And then I fled to LA when I was 21 and never have left the West Coast since. And my proximity to Europe theory is that the closer you are to Europe, which, as we know, itself still in this day and age, many of the composers there are still clinging on to a lot of the 20th century approaches to music. I'm not painting a broad sweeping statement and saying all of them are. I'm just saying that an unusual number are, that they still cling on to a definition of concert music that is much more mired in concepts of the 20th century more. And by the time you get to the East Coast, certainly it's a lot freer. We have a lot more different all kinds of music going on the East Coast. But there is a faction, especially in academia, in East Coast writing, that still clings on to those European tenets. Then you go 3,000 miles further to the West, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Everybody's doing everything. There's no norm. There's no one right way to be approved of or pat on the head. And this is somewhat true in academia and definitely true outside of it. But I think literally the further you are away from the Western European tradition, quite physically, the freer you are. I mean, you look at people like Lou Harrison and others that came out, what the West meant to Terry Riley and to a lot of people that you think of as West Coast composers. There is a freedom and a disassociation from a lot of kind of European norms in that music. And I find it fascinating. And as I'm sort of a mutt because my own style is all over the map, depending on what piece I'm writing. And sometimes within the piece, just like with Tight Squeeze, which we'll talk about, it's really interesting to me that we can write anything we want to. There are no expectations or limitations or norms, as long as it's done convincingly and, from a place of authenticity. People can smell it a mile away if it's not authentic. And we're back to noodling. No noodling.
Oh, I love it.
But you don't have to agree with me on this proximity to Europe thing, but it's an observation that I have noticed that there, and other people seem to see it too, that there is a freedom on the West Coast. And now talk about freedom. I mean, 17 years ago, after 24 years in LA, I moved up to San Juan Island, population 6,000, and it's twice the size of Manhattan. So we have not a lot of people here, a lot more animals, and certainly not a new music community here, that's for sure. And so complete freedom. I just stare out into the expanse here over the Salish Sea, and anything that comes to mind, I'm going to put down, and without any shackles of expectation and any shackles of academic expectations, certainly. Fascinating to me that the times have brought us this kind of freedom. I mean, there's so many things that have brought us freedom, and we can talk about them. I mean, technology is huge for bringing us freedom. First of all, it's probably what has allowed music and concert music to become so much freer, because all of a sudden our audiences are exposed to things from all around the world, which they maybe hadn't been quite as exposed to until 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And then I always love to point out access, because you and I care very much about equity.
Mhm.
And if it weren't for the internet, we wouldn't be seeing so many women and people of color and people from all different backgrounds having their music out there in the world. It's the access that we all have, the equal access that is allowing this. And we didn't have that before. We had gatekeepers. You had to go through the gatekeepers years ago, publishers, record companies, et cetera.
Mhm.
You couldn't just hit a button and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So, wow, has that changed things? So many things have shifted and shifted us kind of away from, ye olden Europe. No, nothing against it. I love that music. I'm not dissing
Mhm.
Europe, but I'm saying we have our scope is much broader now. It's not just based in that one Western European construct. It's based from all over the world.
And what's also really cool is on your website, you have some really beautiful pictures of the outside of the
Yeah.
islands, but also of your workspace and where you do your work and
Yeah.
also all the windows. And
Yep.
um,
It's a
I'm
glass house. Yep.
that's what we have too. We
Really?
yes,
Nice.
we wanted windows, and
Yeah.
it does. It lets the outside in a different way, and you feel
Yeah.
that space differently. But I want to know more because I was really impressed looking at your workstation. Like just,
Yeah.
I use a small laptop on my desk and that's basically it and a little keyboard. But you have like an
I look like
amazing
I'm launching a spaceship.
Okay, so next Halloween, you're gonna put on a spacesuit and
Yep,
you're gonna sit
and do
there
a
and
photo.
do a bit. Yeah.
Greetings from NASA. We've opened a Friday Harbor office.
Yeah. But it was very I would really love to hear you talk about your workspace and how you function in that space.
Sure. It's a very efficient workspace, actually. And it's very visually real estate intensive, meaning I have 8 or 9 screens here surrounding me. The workspace is in an L, and I've got a massive window in front of me. And I'm right literally 3 feet from my deck. I mean, the studio might as well be on the deck, and I am right 20 feet above the sea. I'm right on the water, and I'm looking up and down the San Juan Channel from Canada, from Saturna Island, all the way down to Shaw Island, which is one of the southern, lower San Juan Islands. And so it's a huge, huge view. And I'm looking straight out to Canada, and it's remarkable. And so the space takes advantage of that. So this wall of windows, an L, the part that's my desk, which faces the water, has huge screens on it, including a big 32-inch vertical screen. I've got it pivots, but I have it vertically because I'm always working on big scores. And then I swivel around, and I've got these 4 monitors, including the middle one is a 34-inch curved monitor, folks. And I can't
Mhm.
tell you, it's a new acquisition to me, and I can't believe I waited this long to get one. I highly recommend them. It is incredible because it takes that space and it utilizes it's 4K, of course, and so it's got high resolution. And it doesn't curve the image, but it basically is much easier on your eyes. You don't have to go quite as much side to side. The reason I have this, I mean, I could, in theory, manage on a laptop, with no other monitors, but it would be tricky because I'm doing the bulk of what I do, not everything, but the bulk of what I do are these big electroacoustic pieces, which have a enormous number of tracks. So it's not just being a composer, it's being a record producer. And so I have to engineer and record all these tracks and deal with many windows of information of plugins and sounds and effects and mixing boards and just all kinds of ways I'm altering the sound. In addition to writing the music. So it all gets written and done at the same time.
Oh, yeah, it's very impressive. I was a bit green, but I gotta tell you, I'd never thought about taking one of those wide screens and flipping it vertically.
Oh, it's life-changing. I've
Oh,
been telling every composer, if you work with more than a few staves, you want to see everything at once. You don't wanna ever have to scroll a page. And certainly even when you're doing chamber music, it's so great to see if you have it, sideways, just as you already do, you see several pages at once, and that shows you kind of the overview of your piece. And vertically, it's as if I were a painter. I wouldn't wanna just see one part of the canvas. Everything relates to everything else. So I need to see the entire page or even 2 pages or, however much I can see at one time to get a sense of, what the heck am I doing?
let's talk again about Tight Squeeze.
Yeah.
It has great energy, and I'd love to hear the story behind it.
That was a commission from a group called, it was a consortium that composers and schools in concert had put together. And this was way back 11 years ago in 2013. I remember this. And I knew I wanted to do an up piece. It was for high school, basically, high school level players. So I couldn't do anything too wild, but it didn't have to be dumb. And although I don't believe in writing dumb music for beginners either. So I
Yeah.
try not, I write for all levels, and I would like to think that none of the stuff, even the grade 0.5 piece, is dumb. Never
Mhm.
write down to students ever. Give
Right.
them the same stuff you'd give to the New York Phil, just with less range. That's all.
Mhm. Yeah.
Less range. Give them as many mixed meters as you want. They can count. They
Mhm.
can all count to 10. There's no reason they can't count in 5 or 7. But there is a physical limit to the ranges that they have. But anyway, I digress. So Tight Squeeze, I knew it was going to be a short piece, 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops. It clocks in at 3:15. I knew it would be electroacoustic. I knew it would be up tempo. And I wanted it to be fun, and I had no idea. I would probably have a groove, be something with
Mhm.
some kind of groove pulse. But beyond that, I had no plan whatsoever. And I was, messing around at the keyboard a little bit, and I came up with the first. I had come up with a little bit of a groove, and I knew I wanted it to be very kind of techno percussion sounding, electronic
Mhm.
percussion. Because the way I use any electronics on all my EA pieces, and of the 26 band pieces, 23 of them are electroacoustic. And so I always use the tracks to be their own sound world. In other words, I'm never, ever, ever emulating sounds that I can get from the instrumentalists. Why would I do that? I've got 80 people on stage, they can all play their instruments. So I am trying to create an additional and separate section of the band, basically, or the orchestra, that creates its own textures and its own frequencies and its own everything and timbres that I can't get from instruments. So it's an equal section of the ensemble. So I knew that the percussive stuff I was going to do was going to be very techno sounding. And then I started kind of doing a little improvisation on top of it just for fun. And I got about 8 notes in. And then I was sort of stuck. I didn't know what to do next, as
Mhm.
one does.
Yeah.
And common problem for composers. And I sat back and I kind of looked at the notes, and I realized that completely without planning this, none of them repeated themselves. I was a student of one of the great serialists, and comes from a great line of serialists, Ursula Mamlock. She was from Berlin. She studied with Shapey and Volpe, and she abandoned straight on serialism by the early '80s, but she was really known for this. When I was studying with her, she was the most wonderful person and remained a dear friend throughout her life. She died a few years ago in her early '90s. Just a wonderful person and a wonderful composer. And she certainly did not dictate to me that I should be writing 12 tone. And at the time, back in 1980, 81, 82, I was not writing that chromatically. I mean, a little bit, somewhat, but certainly not 12 tone, and that was fine. But anyway, I look at these notes. I say all this for background because I thought, wow, none of them repeat themselves. I should go for broke. Let's find the other four. What are they? First, let's identify what's missing, and let's see what order they should go in. And it didn't take me long to find what I felt was the right order for those last 4 notes. So all of a sudden, I had a 12 tone row. And I decided, okay, I'm going to keep it horizontally. I am not going to do it vertically, like Schoenberg or Webern would have done. I'm not going to do it on the grid the old fashioned way,
Mm.
because I wanted to have complete control harmonically of the vertical, procession of the piece. And then, so what ended up coming out, and you'll hear it when you listen to this, folks, is basically a 12 tone row that if Schoenberg wrote for big band, and maybe, and went to Havana and threw in a little Afro-Cuban stuff. I don't know. That's it's sort of this complete mashup, but it came out organically. Like, I wasn't trying to do this. I kept the row. The row appears throughout the piece, and snippets of the row. I use it motivically all the way through. As you're saying, it's a tight piece motivically. And then the row, I use it, I think, in 2 other tonal centers, but I'm always very strict with the row. But then it's harmonized, in really interesting ways. And I think it's sort of a good object lesson when people who maybe they don't understand chromaticism, or they don't understand the history of 12 tone music, or whatever, or they don't like it. I happen to love it. I love that music, but especially when it's beautifully played, and emotionally played,
Yeah.
people need to understand that how you harmonize anything completely changes the meaning of the pitch in relation to everything else, right? And this is sort of a fun object lesson of that. And I've since written, I think, 2 other band pieces that are 12 tone, maybe 3. But it's such a fun tool to use. And it just gives color to everything that you do. So, yeah, Tight Squeeze was
Ah,
really fun to do, and a great way to open up from an educational standpoint to get these kids, most of whom are in high school, talking about serialism and the history of music from 100 years ago, and giving teachers an opportunity to explore that with them a little bit.
oh, that's so amazing. What an incredible story. And I love that you talked about, how you trusted your gut, right? You went
Yep.
through that process and then you did what we do next as composers, but people always ask me about, what do you do when you get stuck? Well, you go back
Yeah.
and you say, what have I been
Right.
doing? Analyzing what this is that I've created. And oh, yeah, I only need 4 more pitches,
That's
right?
right. In this case, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I'm sure you tell people this all the time, that if you're stuck, let's say if you've written a third of the piece and you're stuck, you may not, or let's say certainly if you've written 2/3 or even half the piece, you probably don't need to write any new material. What you do need to do is go forensically back and see where can you pull motives from. Be very Beethovenian about it, and look at what have you already put on the page. That's your material. And that's what needs to get developed. And that's going to make any piece a tight piece, squeezes or no squeezes.
Let's listen now to Tight Squeeze, performed by the Vandercook College of Music Symphonic Band, conducted by Charles T. Mangini. So, another thing I want to ask you about, because this is something that you're very good at, you have amazing titles for your work. I mean, so, going through a list, this tight squeeze, lights out, paper cut, bioplasm. I loved that
Mm.
one too. But yeah, you just really engaging ideas to begin
Thank
from.
you. The title of a piece is the only advertising it has. Think of it
Mm,
that way.
yes, that is the
It's the
truth.
only thing you have to grab people. And I think the hardest thing, if not only is titling pieces can be hard, program notes are the worst for most of us, I think, because the reason we write music is because we don't have the words to describe what we're writing about. This is particularly true for more serious pieces. And that's why we write music. So being then asked, if frankly demanded that we, and for good reason, I think program notes do need to exist, but having to write about your music is very, very hard. I find it very hard. And
Yes.
I'm quite loquacious, as you have seen. And, and I have a hard time writing about my music because I'm in the music head about it. And whatever it might mean to me doesn't mean it has to mean that to somebody else. Titles are similar. I don't want to set somebody up. I mean, with pieces like Lights Out and Tight Squeeze and Paper Cut, these are light pieces. These are, fun little things. Bioplasm is little pithier. Some of the pieces that have a little more emotional heft, I find it really hard to title them because, like, where do you even begin? And everybody's going to get their own personal journey, emotionally out of it. And I don't want to tell them what to think or set them up for an expectation that is going to be unmet if they see a title and then they don't get what the title was about. When they listen to the piece, they keep waiting for that to happen or for that to feel that, and then they don't feel it. Well, then I've set myself up for failure, haven't I?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's tricky. I mean, how do you find it hard to title pieces when you're not working with text? I mean, when you're doing choral pieces or vocal pieces, it's different, of course. But
Yeah, so because most of my commissions and most of my work is vocal,
right,
yeah, it's a bit easier in that regard. So I come to my instrumental works with this. Oh, I have to name this something,
yeah. And
and
you've
it's
written a lot of instrumental stuff, and so how do you go about titling it?
right. Well, yeah, it's tricky, and sometimes, most often, the title comes with the idea, and then the music comes. But I can also. I'm trying to think of an example where I wrote the music first and then titled it. I don't know if I have one. Do you do it that way?
Yeah, it depends on the piece. This last one, I had no idea until about 5 days ago what the title was going to be. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this needs a good title because I think it's a good piece and I think it'll get out there in the world. And I was having a hard time thinking about a title. And then what I did, my little exercise was, okay, let's describe what's going on in this piece emotionally. We're back to that, folks. It's all about emotion. And, and so I literally sat back and I took stock. It's a 9-minute piece. I took stock of where it goes, what it says, and what I think it's saying and what it feels like. And then I decided, and then I threw out every word that came to mind that was really trite.
Mm,
Because it was always the trite ones that come up first, right? The obvious ones, and then I came across the right word. I tend to favor shorter titles. A lot of my pieces only have one word or two words, but it's very tricky. It's
mm,
really tricky. But sometimes I will know ahead of time. I'll have an idea of what the piece will be like. Spark, get back to Spark. I had mentioned that this woman who I had never had the pleasure of meeting, but I know I would have been good friends with her if I had known her. She had Spark, and I knew the piece was going to be called Spark,
mm.
and that probably helped me along writing it even.
Yeah.
So
Listening to you, you have such a wealth of knowledge about all these things. And of course, I'm saying that knowing that a lot of our opinions are the same, too, which is kind of an interesting, approach.
I think the trick is to only have guests that agree with you on everything.
Yeah. But, and then you do all this advocacy work. And then, is there any part of you, do you teach at all? Do you teach composition?
No, I'm not on faculty anywhere. I don't have private students, but I feel like I'm teaching every time I get to do webinars or a ton of Zoom rehearsals, web
Mm.
rehearsals, as I do all the time. As a matter of fact, I did one on Tight Squeeze just yesterday.
Mhm.
I love doing those, and I do residencies of course, a few a year. And those, so I feel like the grandmother who gets to visit kids, play with them, do all the wrong things with them, like, just let them go wild. And then I leave and I just hand them back to the teachers and leave. And so I get the
Love
best
that.
of all worlds. I get to teach without being a teacher. I have so
Yeah.
much respect for teachers, and I don't know how they get through every day, the energy it takes to be up in
Yeah.
front of and trying to be compelling and share information. Younger minds, trying to engage them for hours at a time, 5 days a week. It's exhausting. And
Yeah.
hats off to all the teachers.
Oh, yes, me too. I am in awe of them as well. And I'm the daughter of a music educator
Oh,
too. So
wow.
like seeing that and knowing that, yeah, I could do that job. I think I could, but that's not where my heart lies or where my passion lies. And I think
Right.
if you're going to do that job right, that needs to be the heart of it. Yeah.
I agree.
Back to heartfelt. I think that is the word of this episode.
Yeah.
And also thinking about how, is it a feminine word? The fact that we're using the
No,
word
I hope
heart.
not.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, that's,
wouldn't you want every man and anybody of any gender identification to be heartfelt?
yes.
Everybody should be heartfelt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I don't
agree.
think it's a feminine word. I think maybe that's frankly what's wrong with our society is somehow, somewhere along the lines, a long, long time ago in a world far away, they decided that anything that was emotional was going to be feminine. The things that addressed emotion and sensitivity had to be feminine. And what a misguided thing. I
Right.
mean, that's just humans are emotional and sensitive if they're doing it right.
Hmm.
And it's just like you've reclaimed compose like a girl, right?
Yeah.
You've reclaimed do it like a girl, which used to be a big insult. Still
Hmm.
is, in some people's hands.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you do it like a girl. Well, we're taking that back and we're saying, yeah, damn right. And you should too.
Hmm.
And clearly, all the strong women out there like you have proven that,
Mm.
and continue to prove it.
Oh,
But we had a
it-
lot of setbacks.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's a whole nother conversation.
It is. Yeah,
Um,
that's another podcast,
yeah,
right?
it's another podcast. You know, thank you for everything today. This is an amazing conversation that I can't wait to share with everyone. And we need to get together.
Definitely.
That's just
I think our
because
next podcast, we'll each have a bottle of wine next to us,
ooh, sounds good.
But no, it's
Uh,
such a pleasure talking to you. You are a kindred spirit, and I've always known that.
mm,
Yeah.
well, I love this, and I greatly look forward to the next time, whenever it may be.
Me
And
too.
I'm gonna keep listening to more of your music because
And likewise. Do you know what
wow,
I listened to today of yours? I'm getting the title wrong. I know it has the word Saint Teresa in it, and I can't remember the full title.
oh
Forgive me.
yeah,
But
him,
man, that is
yeah,
beautiful. And it's,
oh,
the opening of that, because I didn't know what to expect, right? I'm just clicking and listening. The opening is transcendent. I mean, by opening, I mean like that first minute and a half, whatever,
mm,
because you don't know where you're going with it. The audience,
hmm.
doesn't know where you're going. What's the wind up to the pitch? I just thought it was so beautiful. Well, I think present tense. It is so beautiful, Jocelyn.
Aw,
Really.
well, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for agreeing with me. No, it's yeah, no, definite kindred spirit. And you know what? That is one thing that this podcast has really helped me realize is getting to actually take the time to carve out and have a conversation about all these things that are important to
Yeah.
what we do. And yeah, there are a lot of us out
There
there.
are, and it feeds us. It makes the rest of our day that much brighter having these conversations. And because composers work in a vacuum to a large degree. I mean, yes, we're dealing with a lot of collaborators, but ultimately the work of the composering is all alone,
Yeah.
And it's so meaningful to talk to, fellow travelers in this. Well,
Oh,
here's to being heartfelt in everything we do.
cheers.
Cheers.
Without anything to drink, but
Exactly.
in the best sense of
Completely
the word.
sober, folks.
Yeah. Yes, but also what a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
When I was younger, I used to worry that not only the way I looked, but also that my personality, who I am, would hold me back in this career. I've always taken my work very seriously, but I'm not always a serious person, and I don't want to always write serious music. I want my music to encompass the full range of human emotion, which includes humor, joviality, and lightheartedness. So many composers write a lot of serious music. I think we think it's imperative to do so to be taken seriously. And obviously this music has an important role in the world. However, I often go to music to lift my spirits and make me feel light and bright again. There's so much heavy music being written these days. It makes sense, there's a lot of heaviness in the world to process. But it can't all be like that. I think Alex does a wonderful job of capturing these lighter emotions, which is easier said than done. I know this from experience. And I love that she is also unafraid to compose music that is heartfelt, meant to tug at your heartstrings. We shouldn't be afraid to build that kind of connection with our performers and the audience. And why do we place so much importance on being taken seriously anyway? Shouldn't we just be focused on writing music that feels like an extension of ourselves, that is an expression of our emotions and interpretations of the world around us? Aren't our honesty and vulnerability the most important qualities that we can bring to the creative process? Compose Like a Girl was produced by Justin Schell, Laura Kreider, and me, Jocelyn Hagen, with special help from fellow composers Erica Malpass and Addie Struckman. The Compose Like a Girl theme music was composed by cellist Cicely Parnas. Thank you all for helping me with this vision. You can learn more about Alex Shapiro and her music at alexshapiro.org and by following her on social media. Check out the links in our show notes, visit jocelynhagen.com/composelikeagirl, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to listen to the music we talked about today, learn more about the Compose Like a Girl initiative, and check out past episodes. You can also find choral programming ideas by checking out the Compose Like a Girl choral series through Graphite Publishing. You can subscribe to the Compose Like a Girl podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and if you're so moved, rate us on Apple Podcasts and share it with a few friends who you think will find inspiration. This really helps us create a sustainable podcast. Until next time, trust your instincts, be brave and unapologetic for your talents. Thanks for listening.